Keanu Reeves was mocked by car dealership. The next day, he's their boss. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Or please complete our 1,000 subscribers and don't miss the end of the video. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning in Los Angeles, but the events of that day would soon become legendary. Keanu Reeves, the beloved actor known for his humble and kind-hearted nature, walked into an upscale car dealership on Sunset Boulevard. Dressed in a simple black t-shirt and worn-out jeans, he looked more like an average guy than a global superstar. Little did the staff know this was not just a routine visit for Keanu. It was the beginning of a story no one could have predicted. Keanu, a man who often shied away from the limelight, had been eyeing a vintage 1969 Mustang for months. Cars were a quiet passion of his, a reminder of simpler times when life wasn't about fame and fortune. He wanted to make this purchase on his own, without agents or assistants, just a man and his dream car. But as he approached the salesman at the dealership, the atmosphere changed. The employees exchanged glances, their eyes filled with skepticism. One of them whispered loud enough for Keanu to hear, "Does this guy even know how much these cars cost?" Another chuckled. "Looks like he's in the wrong place." Probably thought this was a rental. Keanu smiled politely, choosing not to respond. Years of enduring public scrutiny had taught him the value of patience and grace. But beneath that calm demeanor, something stirred. It wasn't anger, it was a quiet resolve. He walked out of the dealership without saying another word, leaving the staff smirking and self-assured. What they didn't know was that Keanu Reeves had more than just a desire for a car. He had a history of surprising people in ways they could never imagine. The backstory: a man of heart and humility. Keanu's life had been a series of highs and heartbreaking lows. Born in Beirut in 1964, he was raised in a broken home, moving frequently between countries. His passion for acting brought him to Hollywood, where he became a household name with films like The Matrix and John Wick. But fame never changed him. He was the same man who quietly donated millions to charity, gave away most of his Matrix earnings to the special effects team, and often took the subway despite his wealth. For years, Keanu had also been a silent partner in several philanthropic ventures. One of these involved creating opportunities for struggling small businesses, a project close to his heart since it reminded him of his late father, a man who had dreams but little support. The following morning, the dealership buzzed with activity. The staff joked about the guy who walked in like he owned the place. Suddenly, a black Escalade pulled up, and out stepped a well-dressed attorney, followed by a team of serious-looking professionals. Before anyone could process what was happening, Keanu walked in behind them, this time in a tailored suit. The smirks faded. A manager approached cautiously, his tone apologetic. "Mr. Reeves, welcome back. Is there something we can do for you?" Keanu's voice was calm but firm. "Yes," he said. "I'd like to talk about the future of this dealership." The room fell silent. Whispers spread like wildfire. Could it be true? Keanu Reeves, the man they mocked just 24 hours ago, was now their boss? The story was far from over. What brought Keanu back to this particular dealership? Was it just a lesson in humility for those who judged him? Or did he see potential in this business to do something greater? As Keanu looked around the room, his eyes seemed to hold a mix of forgiveness and purpose. Whatever was coming next, it was bound to change not only the dealership's future, but also the lives of everyone involved. The silence in the room was thick with tension, the kind that could break hearts or spark change. Keanu Reeves stood there, the same man they had mocked the day before, but now commanding their full attention. His words were calm, measured, but the weight they carried was undeniable. "Do you know why I came here yesterday?" Keanu began, his voice steady but tinged with something deeper. Sadness, perhaps even regret. He let the question hang in the air as the employees exchanged nervous glances, unsure of how to respond. "This wasn't about buying a car," Keanu continued, his gaze drifting to the vintage 1969 Mustang in the corner of the showroom. "That car, it belonged to someone I loved very much." The room grew quieter still as everyone leaned in, drawn by the raw emotion in his voice. "Her name was Jennifer," he said, his voice catching slightly. "We met in 1998. She was everything to me, kind, funny, and always saw the best in people, even when they didn't deserve it. That Mustang was her dream car. She talked about it endlessly. How one day we'd drive across the country in it, windows down, the world behind us. He paused, his eyes glistening. But life had other plans. In 2001, Jennifer passed away in a car accident. I lost her, and a part of myself. Keanu swallowed hard, his composure faltering for a moment. I never got to fulfill that promise, never got to buy her that car, never took that road trip. And yesterday, when I walked in here, I thought maybe, just maybe, I could finally honor her memory. But instead, he trailed off, his eyes meeting those of the salesman who had mocked him. Their expressions shifted from guilt to something deeper. Shame, regret, perhaps even understanding. Keanu took a deep breath and straightened his shoulders. I'm not here to punish anyone. That's not who I am, and it's not what Jennifer would have wanted. But I am here to make a difference. This dealership, your jobs, they mean something. Not just to you, but to the people who walk through those doors, dreaming of something better, something more. He paused, scanning the room. From today, things are going to change. We're going to treat people with kindness, with respect, because you never know what someone's story is, what loss they're carrying. And maybe, just maybe, we can give them a little hope. Keanu's voice softened. As for me, I'll take the Mustang. Not because I need it, but because I need to keep a part of her alive. And maybe someday I'll take that road trip. For her. For us. The room was silent, save for the muffled sound of someone stifling a sob. A young saleswoman, who had been quietly listening from the back, wiped her tears away. One by one, the employees began to realize the weight of their actions, the humanity in the man they had judged so hastily. And as Keanu turned to leave, keys in hand, he stopped and looked back. This isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning. The dealership was a different place after Keanu's visit. For days, the staff couldn't shake the image of his quiet pain, the way his voice cracked when he spoke of Jennifer. They whispered among themselves, piecing together the fragments of a love story so profound, it felt almost too painful to bear. A week later, the Mustang was gone from the dealership floor. Keanu had picked it up in the early morning hours, leaving behind nothing but a note on the manager's desk. It read, "This car isn't just a vehicle, it's a memory, a promise, and a goodbye. But it's also a beginning. Thank you for helping me find my way back to her. Birkin." No one knew where he had gone. Not his assistant, not his closest friends. For Keanu, this journey was deeply personal, a pilgrimage to the places he and Jennifer had once dreamed of visiting together. 2 weeks into his drive, Keanu found himself in a small town in Montana, the kind of place with one diner, a single gas station, and a sky so vast it could swallow your grief whole. He parked the Mustang outside a quaint bed and breakfast, the gravel crunching under the tires. As he stepped out, a middle-aged woman with warm eyes and a kind smile approached him. "Beautiful car," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. Keanu nodded, forcing a small smile. "It belonged to someone special." The woman's gaze softened. "Funny how things carry pieces of the ones we've lost. My husband used to have a watch like that. Even after he was gone, I'd wind it every morning, just to feel close to him." Her words caught Keanu off guard. For a moment, he felt an inexplicable connection to this stranger, a reminder that grief, though deeply personal, was also universal. That night, in the quiet of his rented room, Keanu opened the glove compartment of the Mustang. He'd done it a dozen times before, always hoping to find something of Jennifer's. A forgotten note, a photo, anything. But tonight, something was there. A folded piece of paper, yellowed with age, tucked in the corner as if waiting for him. His hands trembled as he unfolded it. The handwriting was unmistakable. It was Jennifer's. "Keanu, if you're reading this, it means you found the Mustang. And if you found the Mustang, it means you finally let me go. I always knew you'd carry the weight of my loss heavier than anyone else. That's who you are. A man who loves with his whole heart, even when it breaks you. But Keanu, love isn't about holding on. It's about letting go, about moving forward, about finding joy even in the pain. Take this car. Take that road trip. But don't do it for me. Do it for you. Find the happiness you deserve. Because if there's one thing I know, it's that your heart is too big to be weighed down by sorrow. I love you, always, Jennifer." Keanu sat there, the note trembling in his hands as tears spilled freely down his face. The years of grief, the unspoken words, the pain he had buried, they all came rushing to the surface. For hours he sat in that room, reading and rereading the letter, his tears soaking the fragile paper. And for the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel it all. The love, the loss, the memories. But as dawn broke over the Montana sky, casting a golden light over the quiet town, Keanu felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Jennifer's words had reached him, cutting through the fog of his sorrow like a beacon. He folded the note carefully and placed it back in the glove compartment, exactly where he had found it. The next morning, Keanu walked out to the Mustang, his steps lighter, his heart a little less heavy. He didn't know where the road would take him next, but for the first time, it didn't matter. As he drove away, the wind whipping through the open windows, he could almost hear Jennifer's laughter, her voice singing along to the radio. She wasn't gone. She was there in every mile, every sunset, every moment. And though his journey was far from over, Keanu knew one thing for certain. Love doesn't die. It transforms, it transcends, and it carries us forward, even when we think we can't go on. The wind carried a sense of renewal as Keanu Reeves drove the vintage Mustang through the open highways, the cassette tape playing softly. Jennifer's favorite songs filled the car, and with each note, Keanu felt her presence beside him. Not as a memory, but as a feeling, a warmth that filled the spaces grief had hollowed out. This journey wasn't just about the car or the promise. It was about rediscovering the life that Jennifer had always seen in him, even when he couldn't see it himself. As he reached Colorado, Keanu decided to take a detour to a small town Jennifer had once mentioned in passing. She had described it as the kind of place that felt like stepping into a painting. Quaint streets, flower-lined sidewalks, and a town square where time seemed to stand still. When he arrived, the town was exactly as Jennifer had described it. Keanu parked the Mustang near a bookstore with a hand-painted sign that read, "Second Chances." It caught his attention immediately, as if fate was nudging him towards something. Inside the bookstore, a woman was shelving books. She looked to be in her mid-30s with auburn hair tied back loosely and eyes that held a quiet depth. She turned when she heard the bell above the door chime. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice kind but cautious. Keanu smiled faintly. "Just browsing," he said, his gaze wandering over the shelves. As he scanned the titles, his eyes landed on a familiar book, On the Road by Jack Kerouac. It had been Jennifer's favorite. The sight of it stirred something deep within him, a mix of sadness and gratitude. The woman noticed his pause. "That one's special, isn't it?" she asked, stepping closer. Keanu nodded. "It was her favorite," he said, not realizing he had spoken aloud. "Her?" the woman inquired gently. Keanu hesitated, then decided to share. "Someone I love very much. She always talked about taking a road trip with that book as her guide. But life didn't give us that chance." The woman's expression softened. "Sometimes life doesn't follow our plans, but maybe it gives us something better instead." They talked for hours, sitting by the large window that overlooked the town square. The woman's name was Clara, and she had moved to the town a few years ago after losing her husband in a tragic accident. The bookstore, she explained, was her way of finding peace, a place where she could rebuild her life, one story at a time. Keanu shared his own story, from the dealership encounter to the note from Jennifer. Clara listened intently, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You know," she said softly, "sometimes we carry the ones we've lost, not because we're stuck, but because they're part of us. They shape who we are and remind us of what matters most." Keanu felt a connection to Clara, something he hadn't expected and wasn't sure he was ready for. But in her presence, he felt understood, as if she could see the wounds he carried without judgment. That evening, the town hosted its annual Festival of Lights. Clara invited Keanu to stay, and though he hesitated, he eventually agreed. As the sun set, lanterns lit up the streets, casting a warm glow over the town. Families gathered, laughter echoing through the crisp night air. Keanu and Clara walked side by side, their conversations flowing effortlessly. At one point, Clara stopped and pointed to the sky. "Look," she said. Keanu followed her gaze. Hundreds of paper lanterns were being released into the night, each carrying a wish, a memory, or a message to someone loved and lost. Clara handed him a lantern and a marker. "Write something," she said. Keanu stared at the blank lantern, his heart heavy yet full. Slowly he wrote, "Thank you for showing me how to love. I'll carry you with me, always." K. He and Clara released their lanterns together, watching as they floated higher and higher, disappearing into the stars. The next morning Keanu prepared to leave, but something about the town and Clara made him linger. Before he got into the Mustang, Clara approached him. "Will you come back?" she asked, her voice tinged with hope. Keanu hesitated, then smiled. "I think I will." As he drove away, the road ahead felt different. Not a path of sorrow, but one of possibility. Jennifer's presence was still there, in the music, the memories, and the love she had left behind. But now there was room for something new. A chance to live fully, not in spite of his loss, but because of it. And somewhere in the distance, a small town with a bookstore called Second Chances waited for his return.